A little bit of strength in the corn market here today. John Jenkinson, let's look at those numbers. The one grain that is a little bit weak today is the soybean market. We'll get to that in just a moment. Over here in the corn, though, we're up 2 3/4 on the May contract, 322.5. July's up 3. December corn up 2 pennies at 343. It was interesting to hear what Jeff Womack had to say about some of those hit and miss rain showers there across parts of the Corn Belt here over the next 2 to 3 to 4 days, where they're trying to plant a little bit of corn, or think about it anyway. Keeping a sharp eye on Nebraska also, particularly those soil temperatures that have really fallen back into the 40s in some areas. May soybeans down 3.5, 833.25. November beans down 3.25, 851.25, and that leaves us just a little ways off of the low of 850.5. The wheat market for Chicago is up 3.25 cents at 532, or make that 2.25 cents now, 532 3/4 on the July contract. Kansas City wheat for July is up 7.5 at 484.25, but that's still not the high. 486.5 is the high, the daily high for that. And Brian Hoops, Midwest Market Solutions, here with us. What are you hearing about all of this planting activity? I've talked to some folks, Brian, that said they're just finishing up putting on some anhydrous. I've talked to some folks that said, yeah, I've got 4,000 acres of corn in the ground already, waiting for it to come up and emerge. I've talked to some that say the anhydrous is on, but still too chilly to plant corn. What are you hearing?
I'm hearing the same thing as you, John. Good morning. It's kind of all over the map. Some guys have started and been pretty active, and now getting a little, snow and nitrogen on their crop. Some, like you said, have put some anhydrous on, done some field work, and there's others who just on their location's been too cold, too wet, and haven't gotten in too big of a hurry. The market doesn't seem to be all that concerned about it. We've been working lower up until today when we finally had a little short covering. It looks like the planting progress on Monday, we could see corn maybe 7 to 8% out here versus the average of 14% on normally. So we could be a little bit behind the normal pace, but it took until mid-May last year before we really got overly concerned, and the market started to come off of its lows and rally off of some real longer-term planting delays and wet conditions.
You make a good point, and I want to bring that up with the soybeans also. This is some of the earliest. I've already talked to some producers that said that they've got some of the beans in the ground already. Now we're down about 3 pennies on the May right now. We're down, 3 cents on the November also. But same thing over in the soybean market, you think? You think that market also is just not too worried about the weather at this point, and kind of, basically looks at just how fast we can put a crop in if we have to, and just doesn't worry about the weather as much as they used to?
Yeah, exactly. Early support came from that private sale, but if there's any shifting of acres, it's probably going to be soybeans that are going to add a few acres, and the market really doesn't need that. We're seeing prices weaken here, but probably the biggest weakness drag on the soybean market was soybean meal futures. Pulling the soybeans lower, the December contracts posted new contract lows this morning. And that has pulled soybeans down as well. We're hearing margins for crushers have really deteriorated over the last 30 days, and so now they're negative compared to a year ago levels. We're going to see, maybe more meal fed as a byproduct to some of our livestock, and less of that crop being crushed. So we are seeing some weakness in the soybean meal, and I think that's what's dragging the soybeans down today.
Yeah, May soybean meal down $2.80 at $2.89. Brian, hold on here for just a moment. We've got more to talk about, and we'll do that next here on the Market Day Report. Here we go, straight to the live cattle market. Now, live cattle have been kind of weak on these front months. April down 70 at 94.80, June down 7, but the August up 55. Brian, is this a result of the fact that we weren't able to really get a good gauge on this week's cash cattle trade?
Yeah, the auction this morning was held instead of on its normal Wednesday, and it traded some 105, which is going to be steady with a week ago. So I think that's relatively supportive to the cattle market. We kind of came off of our lows after some of those trades were announced. We've also heard a little bit of trade at 105 in the Southern Plains and 168 in Iowa. Some handfuls, and we're probably not going to see very heavy volumes today. The cutout values came out, and they were sharply higher once again, so it's a supportive feature, and we're going to be looking ahead, I think, to next week and see if we can get this economy, up and running back in the next several weeks and kind of get things more back to normal, get the restaurants opened up, and that should help out as well. But the big, of course, the big thing is get the slaughter facilities back open and safe and running so that we can process the meats, the pork, and not have any type of a backlog of cattle or pork for that matter.
April feeders up 92, 119.17. May feeders up $1.40 at 119.88. That August is up 15. Over in the hog complex, the lean hogs are higher with May up 110, June up 163. Brian, this is one of the bigger gains that we've seen in a while over here in this hog complex.
Yeah, we badly need some big gains in this hog market, and we're seeing it finally today. Now that April's off the board and we're holding, kind of a discount in the May and June contracts where April went off and where the lean hog index is. We're certainly not down at these price levels because of lack of our exports. They've been pretty outstanding, especially to China over the last several months. So we've got a lot of export activity. It's more of a slaughter capacity right now. We've got to have the shackle space to kill these animals. Then we can see these exports continue to push higher, get the economy opened. We should have very good demand throughout the summer.
Mr. Hoops, always a pleasure. Have a good weekend. Stay safe and stay healthy. Brian Hoops, Midwest Market Solutions. I do want to look at the Class 3 milk price here. Right now, we are kind of mixed. We're down a penny on the April, May up 3, June down 3, so not a whole lot of direction there, Janet.